Hey guys, I'm back with a new ranking video. Now I know I haven't been doing as many videos as I used to. I've been doing a lot of videos a year, and this is really only my second video this year. It's already right in the middle of 2019 right now, so I apologize that I have been doing many videos for my subscribers who probably have been want to see me do more videos, but I just got a lot of stuff going on with as you remember, I mentioned I moved into a new place in my last video, and as well as also I've just been pretty dry on new videos. I haven't really had many ideas for new videos, I'll admit. I do have other ones I do hope to do sooner rather than later, but I thought of doing this video because as you remember, I did the ranking of the Howling series, and I actually did get some suggestions, and there's this one by this YouTuber named CyberRay1976 who actually suggested I do ones for Sleepaway Camp or Phantasm, Child's Play. And so, as you of course know from my other videos from the past, I'm a huge Sleepaway Camp fan, and I'm surprised I didn't think about doing this myself. So, I thought of doing a ranking video for the Sleepaway Camp series. My favorite series, pretty much ever. Alright, so, just like the Howling ranking I've done, I'm going to do it from worst to best. And this is all my opinion, because I do know that some of these movies in this series, people will have different opinions on what they think is the worst and what they think is the best. And so this is just my opinion. You can agree, disagree. It doesn't bother me, because I do know there are going to be disagreements on which one's the best and which one's the worst. So, that all being said, let's start. So, number 5, I chose Sleepaway Camp 4, The Survivor. And you may have actually remember I did a review video of this a few years ago around the time when this was released, and I overall did like this movie for what it was. I know that there's people who didn't like it because the only thing it was just footage from the first, second, and third Sleepaway Camp. It was mostly footage from the first, second, and third movie, and just little footage of a movie that was never actually 100% finished. And so, if you expected that, what I just pretty much did, you'll probably like it for what it is. It is still fun to watch. It's worth checking out if you're a Sleepaway Camp fan. It's worth seeing a movie that was originally filmed back in 1992, but was never finished. And for what they had, what'd you expect? But yeah, this is the worst Sleepaway Camp movie because of that pretty much reason alone. It was basically just footage from the first, second, and third movie mostly. Quality, the picture quality was very grainy as well. The editing at times was pretty messy, but I did like the music. It was done by John Atlin, who did the music for the first Sleepaway Camp 2 and 3 as well. So, it's still worth checking out, but just don't expect much from it. Number 4, I chose Sleepaway Camp 3, Teenage Wasteland. So, before Sleepaway Camp 4 even came out, I always thought this was the worst one originally, but it was still overall fun. So, this one pretty much, it's Angela, the girl from the other movies, basically now in disguise as a camper that was supposed to go to the camp where the second movie took place. It's basically now under new ownership and reopened, and so pretty much I just thought that was pretty weak for that she would disguise herself as a 17-year-old. She's basically fooled everyone thinking that she's actually a teenager when she's actually in her early 20s. But it's still pretty funny at times. I did like the death scenes, despite they were pretty edited very short for that matter, because of the MPAA was threatening to give them an X rating, something that a lot of horror movies from the time actually got. So, I still like this one overall. It's still fun to watch. It's worth seeing if you're a Sleepaway Camp fan. And number 3 is Sleepaway Camp 2, Unhappy Campers. I know a lot of people think that this one is actually the best one in the series, and I can see why too. I mean, like, it had a bigger budget than the first movie. The effects, like for all the gore, the kills were looked more real than the effects in the first movie. And it was also, in general, like, a lot of fun. So, like, this one, like, went to a bit of a different direction than the first movie. Like, the first movie was all out, like, a serious horror movie. This was more of, like, a horror comedy. Same with the third one, it was more of a horror comedy as well. And so, like, I know a lot of people like this one the most because of how fun it is, and the deaths were pretty creative. But personally, I didn't think it was as good as the first one. It's still good overall, still really like watching it. I've watched it as many times as I've watched the first movie. First movie, just a little bit more. And, and like, it's just in general, like, the only thing I could really just say is, like, it's in general just a fun movie to watch. It's basically never boring. It's overall pretty good, so. And I know this one I think is going to get some controversial. Like, there's going to be a lot of disagreements on this one, because I know a lot of people, like, think this one is actually the worst Sleepaway Camp. Personally, I like this one, but again, this is all opinion based. And that is, number 2 for me is Return to Sleepaway Camp. And to be completely honest, as I just mentioned, I know a lot of people consider this to be the worst one, and I could see why too. I mean, like, the main character, which is the Alan character, is pretty annoying and pretty unlikable. And there's also some pretty bad acting and pretty bad CGI effects as well. So I understand that. As well as also, like, since this one, like, returns a few of the original cast from the first movie, and some people probably thought they just didn't take advantage because they weren't in it that much, though. As well as also, this was directed by the director of the first movie, and so, like, they probably would have, like, thought, like, better, especially if the amount of time they had to wait for this movie to come out, because this was actually filmed in 2003, but came out straight to DVD in 2008. So it took 5 years for this movie to be released. So if, like, the amount of time we waited for it, I'm sure everyone expected it to be better. But despite that, like, the reason why I actually liked this more than the other sequels, and why it's personally one that I actually really like, and also one that I think is the second best, is because I really liked how this one returned the Sleepaway Camp movies back to its original roots, making it more of a serious horror movie, making it basically, like, like, no comedy in it, like, maybe just a little laughs here and there, but not focusing on the comedy. It's basically, it's all straightforward horror. And also, I really liked some of the throwback, the 80s feel it had. I really also liked seeing the original cast back, even though some of them were barely in it. I also did like the kills, which is something that even people who didn't like this one actually do agree that the kills were at least good. So, like, despite there were some bad CGI effects in some of the kills, but there were some pretty good practical effects in it, though. Yeah, so overall, I do like this one. Like, I understand why people don't like this one, but overall, I do like it, and I do think it is the second best. And number 1, and I'm sure you all know this already, it's the first one, Sleepaway Camp. So yeah, this is not just my favorite horror movie, this is my favorite movie in general. Like, I just all out really love this movie. I got a lot of my friends into this, some friends who've never seen this. I've showed this to them, they've all really liked it, they became fans of Sleepaway Camp. And so, like, this, I think is like, you know, one of the best horror movies of the 80s, and again, my favorite movie. I mean, I know it has some of its problems, like there's some pretty bad acting in it, but I really do like, I like the music, I liked the atmosphere, I liked the death scenes, how like very bizarre, very weird they were. In general, like, you know, I really liked the Angela character, who's like pretty much the only character to be in all the movies. Like, you know, she was great. Like Felissa Rose, who played Angela in this, was great. It was actually her first movie, and she did great. I also did like how the kids acted, like how they basically acted like real kids in camp in the 80s. So, and especially, the number one thing that we all really like is the movie's ending, which I'm not going to spoil just in case you're getting into this movie, haven't seen it yet, but want to get into it. I'm not going to spoil it, but it's an ending that's going to disturb you, leave you speechless. It's going to shock you. It's not for the squeamish. But man, like, I've watched this movie so many times to know this movie very well. And, I mean, I'm not really too sure what else I could say about this. I mean, it's like, you know, a very good 80s slasher movie. It's, I mean, all the characters in it are pretty over the top. I really liked the mystery of who the killer is. So, overall, this is my favorite movie of all time, and I guess that's really all I gotta say. So, I hope you enjoyed this ranking video. I'm sure Cyber Ray, if he's watching, thanks for the ideas, man. So, I think that's really all I gotta say about this. So, I hope to do more videos sooner rather than later, and that's basically it for this video. Okay, see ya everyone.